Hello and good morning and welcome to Living Seas Wales Live. I'm Lizzie Daly, joining you from beautiful Pembrokeshire today, here to bring you a number of Living Seas Wales highlights over the past few years. We're going to be taking a look at some of the incredible work of this project, meeting some of the fantastic faces behind it and learning about why this project is so important. Now, talking about Living Seas, I'm actually watching, and I wish I could share this with you, but just behind the camera here, there is some harbour porpoise. I've been watching them for the past 10 minutes or so. There's cormorants flying over. It is a very busy day for a lot of wildlife here in Pembrokeshire, and just another reminder of how beautiful our coasts really are. Now, for those who don't know, the Living Seas Wales project is all about protecting this. It's where warm waters from the south meet cold, nutrient-rich waters from the north and meet to create a home for a diverse array of wildlife. Here in Wales, we have several hundreds of kilometres of wild coastline, and of course, within that, a number of fantastic marine and coastal environments and ecosystems too, from mudflats to salt marshes to rocky reefs and wild islands that we all know and love. Now, if you're watching in today, let me know where you're coming in from. I want to hear from you. Get your comments in live. We'll read out some of your comments today, and definitely get in touch with some of the project managers and officers later on today as well to ask them any questions you may have. So a bit of background: the Living Seas Wales project was launched in 2018. It's a collaboration between the Wildlife Trust of South and West Wales and the North Wales Wildlife Trust. And really it's a project where the Wildlife Trust had shared values on how they would like to protect these marine environments, the value and the importance of protecting our marine environments, and sharing that with wider audiences, inspiring us here in Wales and across the UK to protect the species here, to protect the environments that are here. And that's what the Living Seas Wales project has done since it began. Or it may be over, but today is all about reflecting about the positives from the project. I should also say that the Wildlife Trust, that we all know as one of the UK's biggest conservation organisations, they do carry out a lot of marine conservation work. Some people don't realise that, but Living Seas Wales project is a massive part of that and is all about that marine conservation. Here in Wales, we have 5 different wildlife trusts. And of course, this fantastic project is probably one of the most active and largest marine conservation project that's come out of Wales. So it's very, very exciting. And they've been very, very busy. Now, just a quick few thank yous, very, very important. I should say a massive thank you to all of the contributors who've given in their photographs and videos as well as part of today and throughout the whole project. But also a massive thanks to People's Postcode Lottery, National Lottery Heritage Fund, Visit Wales, People's and People's Collection Wales. This has been a funded project by the People's Postcode Lottery and National Lottery Heritage Fund with Visit Wales. So massive thanks to them as well for making this work possible. Such important work. Now, very shortly, we're going to go and meet some of the fantastic team behind this wonderful project. But first, we thought we'd break in the beautiful morning with something a little bit easy, dare I say, or maybe a little bit hard. We're going to play Guess the Animal. So we've got 2 pictures for you. There's this first picture. What marine animal do you think this may be? Escape. Are you looking at an ocean? Maybe it's a very tall dorsal fin with a bit of a white patch there. Could it be a sky? Let me know in the comments what you think this is. Is it a bird? Is it a dolphin? Is it an orca? Who knows? Let me know. And we have another image here as well. Maybe a little bit too easy. If you've got little ones watching, why not get them to have a bit of a guess? Nevertheless, an important and iconic species that we see on our coast. Still loved. Extra points if you can name the species as well. So get your comments in. Let me know what these 2 marine animals are, and we'll reveal the answers at the end. But first, let's meet some of the people behind the Living Seas Wales team. It really has been a collaboration of like-minded staff, wildlife champions, wildlife ambassadors, and volunteers by the ton. This collaboration of people has allowed hundreds of events take place, activities and surveys and marine mammal watching take place across Wales throughout the past few years. It really couldn't have happened without the people behind this team, this fantastic team. So here's a little clip from the Living Seas Wales team to give you a little insight into who's been part of this fantastic project.
Hi, I'm Sarah.
Me, Dwi. I'm Laura. Dawn Dwi. I'm Beth. Eve Dwi. Emma Dwi.
And together with our volunteers, we're the Living Seas Wales team.
There we are. So that's just some of the team. But of course, there's also a whole army of volunteers as well. And get this, since the project began, there's been 13,673.05 hours of volunteer time given. Look at this incredible network of volunteers. Across these volunteers, they've organised 552 events and activities. And these have been put in place for the public, for community groups, schools, and businesses. And really, it is this team that have allowed all of us and the public to take part in marine mammal watches, beach cleans, pop-up events, living seas, roadshow, snorkeling, surveying, training events, guided walks, online activities, seaweed pressing, and just having a picnic with the porpoise. So like I am now, actually, right here in the Pembrokeshire. So a massive thank you to the entire team that have worked so hard in putting together such a brilliant project. Really, it couldn't have happened without you. Now, while we're also celebrating the fantastic people behind the project, we should celebrate the work of the project as well. So throughout the project, there's been a number of really exciting smaller initiatives, one of which is to inspires them. You know, what are the things that gets them excited about the marine coastline and marine environment? And also, there was a big, exciting 7D Living Seas Wales Roadshow, which was a huge success. If you missed it, take a look at this. A really exciting and hugely successful roadshow that was. Really exciting to get a full sensory experience of what it's like to be out on the coast. Now, I mentioned just the number of hours put in by the volunteers and the number of events, but the team have actually put together a bit of a summary of some of the project highlights, some of the things that have happened. So, as I mentioned, there was 552 events organised all in all, but the team have actively organised over 75 online events as well, as we're in unprecedented times, all stuck at home. So there's been talks, there's been training, there's been Facebook Lives, quizzes, ID sessions, seaweed pressing workshops, and meet the warden sessions as well. There's been 42 roadshow events, thousands of people attending, and activities that have really brought these events to life, these 552 events to life, with about 18,000 participants. So just loads going on. I mean, there's a real list of accomplishments under this project. It's all about celebrating our marine environments. And if you're someone who's kind of hearing about this project maybe for the first time, or you're thinking, gosh, I'd love to do any of those activities I just listed, you absolutely can. You can still become a member of the Wildlife Trust of South and West Wales or the North Wales Wildlife Trust. You can find out more from the Living Seas Wales website. And why don't you join in? You can also get involved in that marine conservation work as well. This project may be coming to an end, but the work doesn't stop. Now, very exciting, the Living Seas Wales champions have actually recorded some really nice clips from rock pools, because when you think of marine habitats, environments, or coastal environments, you may think bottlenose dolphins off of Cardigan Bay. You may think turtles washing up in Harlech. You may think thresher sharks breaching out in the Celtic Deep. But what about our rock pools? So many of us, when we go to the beach, get so swept up in the excitement inside a rock pool, and rightly so. There are so many exciting and fascinating species to see inside rock pools. And of course, all the species in a rock pool have to be hardy. They're dealing with extreme changes in environments. These are ecosystems that are linked to wider ecosystems and wider environments, and changing all the time. Every time that tide comes in, it's bringing in new organisms, and every time it goes out, it takes out a number of factors. We're talking changing water temperatures, fluctuating oxygen levels. We've got sometimes very, very wild tides. I think you'll agree, being in Wales, we often experience lots of storms. It's constantly changing, and you may find lots of highlights in there, from shrimps to mollusks to anemones to crabs. And our champions have sent in some really lovely videos. So starting with this first video, this has been sent in actually from Alan Rowett and Anne Wake. They've sent in a video of a blue-rayed limpet. I absolutely love these. Their shell is almost entirely translucent, and all you can see is these lines, these blue kind of dotted lines running parallel through the body. That's reflecting back blue light. It's thought that that light is being reflected back to kind of warn predators that they're not tasty, not good to eat. But a really lovely find. You can find them feeding on seaweed. So head down to lower shores on bigger seaweed, where you'll find these wonderful iridescent, lovely blue-rayed limpets. What else have we got? We've also got another one coming in. Of course, the sea gooseberry. So a very, very common one. See the size of this. Very, very small, but a great find if you're snorkeling or in the water or just around the coast. You'll often see these. Again, lines of these combs, a comb jellyfish. So they've got lines of these comb-like structures which create this lovely dazzling display. And you can also see there the two long tentacles, which are very sticky and help in actually finding and hunting for food. Those zooplankton get stuck on those long tentacles. One of my favorites, I have to say. Another video sent in, we've got a gulping yellow ring sea squirt. Lovely bright yellow top there. You can see the little gulp. There we are. And again, almost entirely translucent. You can see almost all of the internal organs, all that muscular body that you can see there. Really lovely video. And if you see one of these in the water, you are absolutely in for a treat, because they're stunning as well. Okay, next video we've got, this is credited to Laura Evans. A flat periwinkle. Oh, great find when you're down on the coast. They can come in a variety of colours, from yellows and browns and greens, actually often mistaken. So what you can see here is bladderwrack, a common seaweed, very big seaweed, and they've got these air bladders. And if you look at this flat periwinkle, they're almost the same size and shape as these air bladders. So sometimes they're mistaken. If they are a dark green, they're mistaken as these air bladders. But the trick is to look for those little tentacles sticking out and then moving around. This is primarily where you'll find them, in this kind of habitat. And an absolute winner if you find one of these. A lovely video there sent in. And finally, we have a nice clip of a keyhole limpet. Look at that, that's not any limpet. You can see actually the current just at the top there where that hole is. It's really, really important for them to actually breathe and get rid of waste out of that hole. And of course, they actually feed on sponge. So you can see it nibbling away on sponge with its raspy tongue there. Absolutely fantastic clips there. And just another reminder of how fantastic all of our rock pools are, and an easy way of connecting with some of our wild seas, our living seas, which is what we're celebrating today. I should also say that if you are heading down to rock pools, make sure you're handling wildlife if they're in buckets very carefully. Be safe. If you can avoid handling them at all, brilliant. Sometimes I just get a mask on and stick my head in a rock pool and just sit there and see what happens. Yes, can you believe rocking it out with a face in a rock pool now and again is sometimes actually the best way of seeing the wildlife. Now, the Wildlife Trust have you to put together some of your most incredible marine memories. There are, for me, so many memories. One of my favourites, well, also really hard to see, but was in 2019. I saw a Kempt Ridley turtle up close. It was actually really sad. This Kempt Ridley turtle had washed up on the beach, but it had a fascinating chunk out of its carapace where thought potentially to have a shark from a shark bite actually on the shell. But a stunning turtle, critically endangered, washed up here in Wales. Just goes to show how diverse our oceans really are, especially in the summertime. So bit of a marine memory from me. But here's actually who have we got coming up to tell us about the marine memories. We've got Beth Thompson, who's Living Seas Engagement Officer, who's here to tell us more.
We've been overwhelmed at times with the response we've had from you all for our call for memories, and we really wanted to share with you some of our favourites. Now, there's no better way to hear these stories than directly from you, so we're handing over to Mike Alexander, as he recalls a rather eventful weekend in September 1988.
It was quite late in the afternoon. I had a phone call from a person. He didn't give his name, but I recognised him as a local farmer. He said, "There's a monster on the beach, and you've got to do something about it. It's bigger than a cow, and it's a bit like a Volkswagen car." And that was it. Put the phone down. Well, I thought I'd better go and investigate, so up to Harlech. And sure enough, there on the beach, there was this monster, as he described it. In fact, it was a turtle. I'll never forget arriving on the steps in front of the museum in Cardiff, and Peter coming out, and the shock on his face. It was absolutely amazing. He realised straight away that we couldn't handle it there. It was far too big. But the museum, fortunately, had a coal store near the docks in Cardiff. So off we went to the coal store, and he hired a crane. And it was as the crane lifted the turtle, that we began to realise quite how big it was, because the alarm bells went off. We were exceeding the legal weight that the crane could lift. And the rest, in a sense, is history. It was such an important find that people were involved, interested in all over the world. A team came over from the States to help with an autopsy. And eventually the turtle ended up in this quite spectacular display in Cardiff. It was there for many years. It's still in Cardiff, and it's still on display. No, not quite as spectacular as the original.
Now, what's truly remarkable about this leatherback turtle from Harlech is that it was, and in fact remains today, the largest leatherback turtle ever found. The specimen, which it turns out was a male, measured in at a whopping 2.91 metres across the carapace, 2.77 metres across the front flippers, and weighed in at a huge 961.1 kilograms. You can certainly see why the crane was struggling. Incredibly, Mike's story was not unique in that we'd heard multiple accounts of leatherback turtles, both dead and alive, from around our shores. Leatherback turtles are in fact summer visitors to Welsh waters, following their stomachs and the blooms of jellyfish that we experience as the water warms. And this is something that they share with our next story. Perhaps not quite so exciting to look at, but any keen anglers or biologists out there may well recognise this as a triggerfish. And this is a fish that's usually found in much warmer waters. As recently as 2016, there was an article in a major tabloid saying new to British waters and new to the fishmonger's slab. And yet this photo was taken in 1997 off Little Haven, and from speaking to divers and fishermen, we're hearing that this species has been in Welsh waters for some time. In fact, based on the records we've received, they seem to be most commonly found washed up on our beaches during and after stormy winter weather. Now, this is interesting because until now, grey triggerfish have generally been perceived as, like the leatherback turtle, a summer visitor to our waters, but clearly they are also around during the colder months. And this is, of course, why collecting your memories has been so important to us. Your stories have provided us with an insight into how our seas are changing and how we may look forward to protect them in the future. They've also allowed us to uncover some really fascinating human stories, reminding us just how intertwined all of our lives are with the sea. I'd like to leave you with one final story from Peter Williams, who recalls his grandfather and uncle undertaking a rather unusual occupation off Amlwch in the 1940s.
During the war, as you know, there would be a lot of casualties and wounded men, soldiers, and all Navy and airmen. And one of the main things that they used to feed them to boost up their energy was seagull eggs. My grandfather was hired by the War Department to go out onto the islands offshore here where the seagulls would be breeding, and they would take one egg out of each nest. They didn't want to decimate the breeding system, you know. And they would be brought ashore where I would imagine there'd be a wagon or some kind of truck, you know, would take these away. I don't know where, but probably the hospitals or where these men used to recuperate.
Like I said, fascinating. We'd like to take the opportunity to thank each and every one of you who've been in touch as part of this project. Your stories are truly what has made it possible. If you would like to find your own memory or explore further, you can do this on our brand new interactive Marine Memories map on our website.
I absolutely love those marine memories, such diverse memories as well, from Mike Alexander's leatherback turtle, of course, up in Harlech. Famous scenes there. I remember seeing Mike Alexander draw in the sands the size of that leatherback, and it was absolutely enormous. I'm not sure about eating gull eggs, though. Great black-backed gull. I'm not sure I'd want to have a face-to-face with one of those. I've seen what they do to the rabbits on Scomer Island. Maybe not for me. Right, okay, next up, we have our first live guest. I'm so pleased to welcome in Sarah Perry, Living Seas Wales manager. Now, she's coming to us live from Newquay and the Newquay Cardigan Bay Marine Wildlife Centre. I'm sure many of you on here will know this famous centre. It was initially established in 1996 as a non-profit organisation, and since then has really grown. It's now the base for a lot of the bottlenose dolphin research there, and it's in an absolutely stunning location. Sarah, can you hear me? Are you here?
Hello, Lizzie.
Hello. Oh, you're coming live inside the centre. That is absolutely fantastic. With a dolphin, I may add.
Yes.
Actually with you. Oh, lovely to see you. And hey, I'm sure many people on here know, of course, the work of the centre. So let's start by talking about why the work is so important there. I mean, you've been going for 25 years now. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so this year in 2021, we're celebrating 25 years of marine conservation work at the Cardigan Bay Marine Wildlife Centre. And this includes 25 years of support from a fantastic network of volunteers. I mean, the centre was originally founded in '96 by local man Steve Hartley, who runs one of the boat trips here out of Newquay, dolphin survey boat trips. And it was set up because he was inspired by the wildlife that we have, or he was seeing whilst out at sea, and he wanted other people to know about it. So our work is really important because in order to protect what we have here, we first need to know what's there and to let other people know. And that way people can begin to understand and appreciate it. It's important to monitor the marine environment and the wildlife living within it, and to do this on an ongoing basis. This way we can notice any changes that are taking place and highlight those changes to ensure the right protection is in place. After all, we rely on the world's oceans to regulate our climate and weather and to produce the air that we breathe. So it's kind of our duty to protect our environment for the future.
Absolutely. And tell us about the importance of the centre itself. Obviously, a big highlight is, of course, the bottlenose dolphins. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, so Cardigan Bay is home to an amazing variety of marine animals and plants, some of which are of international importance. And for this reason, we have a number of marine protected areas, and examples of those marine protected areas include things like special protection areas for birds and special areas of conservation. And they're designated to protect specific species and habitats that are of international importance. On our doorstep here, we have the Cardigan Bay Special Area of Conservation, and that stretches 12 miles up and down the coast from here and 12 miles offshore. This SAC was designated in 2003, and that was primarily to protect the population of dolphins that we have here. But it also protects other species found in the area, including species like grey seals, river and sea lampreys, which are a type of fish, as well as habitats including sandbanks, reefs and sea caves. So the introduction of these special areas has helped us to raise awareness of the importance of the wildlife that we have here. But it's also led to the growth of the local economy by boosting the tourism industry, which does rely heavily upon the presence of the dolphins, as well as the other amazing, fantastic marine and coastal wildlife that we have around here. I mean, there are a number of boat trip operators operating along the whole of the Cardigan Bay coast, taking people out to see the local wildlife. And we work closely with one of these operators to help us raise awareness of the wildlife and to enable us to collect important monitoring data.
Yeah. Can you tell us about some of the highlights of the project? Because I hear you've got an exciting view along the bay there at the moment.
Yeah, so I mean, the Living Seas Wales project has enabled us to inspire and enthuse so many people about the marine life in Wales, and has obviously helped us to expand our conservation and outreach work that we've been doing over the last 25 years at the Cardigan Bay Marine Wildlife Centre. I mean, we've already talked about the amazing events and activities that have taken place, the marine memories that have been contributed, and not forgetting all our amazing volunteers. But one of the key highlights has been the installation of the Dolphin Watch live camera. This aspect of the project was inspired by by lockdown restrictions initially imposed during the spring last year, which highlighted really how important being able to immerse ourselves in nature and wildlife is for everyone.
Yeah.
Newquay is a real hotspot for dolphin sightings, and so we wanted to find a way to share the experience of watching real wild dolphins and the amazing views that we have from our seafront visitor centre that I'm watching right now. So we decided to set up this live stream camera to bring those views and the sea and the dolphins and all other sea life to everyone's homes, as well as finding a way that people can help us to monitor the dolphin activity in the bay. So the camera's been set up now and been running for a few months. And despite being outside of the main season for spotting dolphins in the area, and some quite poor weather conditions, we have been able to spot them through the camera. And I think maybe we got some highlights.
Yeah, we've got a nice highlight video here showing some of the things you can see. Of course, they're so active, aren't they? The bottlenose dolphins. I mean, I've seen them predating the barrel jellyfish there. You hear porpoising as well, but I think in this clip you can see them porpoising and jumping. It's such a brilliant thing to watch, isn't it? Having access to something like that is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, we're really looking forward to kind of peak dolphin activity season and hope that the live stream brings some joy to people far and wide. For those, those people that aren't able to get out to the coast, especially now at the moment with all sorts of different restrictions in place. And, just being able to watch the sea and see what's going on is quite relaxing, really. And then when you do see a fin or a dolphin leaping, it's like so exciting, and yeah, it's a really wonderful thing.
A really lovely thing to see. Yeah, keep your eyes on those live cameras, and I can spend hours on them, as I have done already. Sarah, how can people get involved with the work that you guys do on Cardigan Bay?
So although the Living Seas Wales project is coming to a close, we'll still have a variety of activities that people can volunteer to be involved in. So as well as helping us raise awareness of the amazing wildlife we have around the Welsh coast, through our visitor centre when we're able to open it again, and other activities and events that we run, a large part of the work that we do is also sort of our research work. And we do that through various surveys that we conduct, and people can help and get involved with that, help us collect the data to help us really monitor the marine environment and the wildlife that frequents the sea and shore that we've got along the coast of Wales. It is really vitally important that awareness raising, educational research work can continue, even when funding for projects like this one come to an end. And this is one of the reasons why volunteers and members of the Wildlife Trust are so important to us. They really do. They're key. I mean, we wouldn't be able to do what we do without our network of volunteers and the members that help, financially, really. They help us to keep doing the conservation work that we've been doing for such a long time.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Well, Sarah, thank you so much. Thank you for all your work, obviously, at the Living Seas Wales project, and of course to all those volunteers as well. And we'll catch up with you again soon.
Yeah. Bye.
Thanks, Sarah. So check out those live cameras and keep an eye on those, because I'm telling you, you can see lots of exciting things happening on those cameras at various times of day. These bottlenose dolphins do not mess around, and as semi-resident pods, it makes sense that there's lots of action going on. Now, Sarah mentioned some of the fantastic volunteers. We've talked about the thousands of hours that have been put in place by these volunteers over time. So here's a video by Laura Evans, Living Seas Wales project officer, to tell us more about why they are so fantastic.
All of the achievements of the Living Seas Wales project would not have been possible without our team of dedicated and passionate Living Seas volunteers and champions. So we want to take this opportunity to say a huge thank you to you all. Since the project started in April 2018, volunteers have contributed a staggering 13,673 hours of their time to our Living Seas work. Volunteers have helped us to monitor marine mammals, survey our shores and keep an eye on our strand lines. They have inspired and educated people through our Living Seas live roadshows and events such as rock pooling, beach cleans and wildlife watching. And let's not forget all the effort that goes on behind the scenes, from entering research data to collecting marine memories, designing resources, planning events and more. Unfortunately, COVID-19 had a massive impact on our plans in 2020. We had to cancel 115 events and put much of our work with volunteers on hold. Despite this, our volunteers rose to the challenge, conducting litter picks on their daily walks, wildlife watching from their windows, attending online training sessions and creating educational content for our website and social media platforms. Now it's time to hear from some of our amazing volunteers.
Gina, I chair the Marine Advisory Group and I do lots of other interesting things like shore surveys on the rocky shores. I've really enjoyed working on the Living Seas project because I've met lots of fascinating, interesting people. I've seen lots of interesting things and I've learnt lots about the creatures that we see. It's a great way to spend my retirement and thank you.
My name is Hugh James. I volunteer on the citizen science-based project called Shore Search to record the plants and animals found on the shore at Bracelet Bay near Mumbles. When I first heard about the Shore Search project, it reminded me how much I enjoyed pottering around in rock pools as a child. Volunteering has given me an opportunity to meet up with other volunteers, some of whom have a wealth of knowledge and experience, and a chance to work alongside some of the skilled professional staff such as Laura that the Wildlife Trust have in South and West Wales. I learn something new every time. My favourite discovery so far has been the reef of honeycomb worm casts found at Bracelet Bay. Changes in my life over the past 10 years mean I spend far more time indoors now. Volunteering with this project has reminded me of the joy of spending time in the natural environment, and I hope that the data we collect may lead to changes in the way we manage our environment.
My name is Ruby George. I volunteer by undertaking marine mammal population surveys in Aberystwyth. I love volunteering as I've gained lots of practical experience outside of studying for my degree. I also get to spend time outside and I've met loads of great people with similar interests.
Thank you again to all our Living Seas volunteers and champions. We really couldn't do it without you.
So fantastic work there of all the volunteers, and of course in much need of celebration. They really carried out some incredible work. Now we're very shortly going to go live to North Wales in Kemlin Nature Reserve, but before we do, I love this video. It really captures the beauty of Kemlin Nature Reserve. Ewan from the North Wales Wildlife Trust takes us round some of the best bits of this reserve. It is of course most famous for its only nesting successful breeding ground for sandwich terns. It's got a lovely shingle ridge, lots of exciting visitors like bee eaters and other tern species as well. So have a look at this little video and then we'll join the team up in North Wales live.
We're here on the remote, wild North Anglesey coast, a truly exposed landscape on the very edge of Wales. And with sea breezes very evident, it's not warm. But we're here for a very good reason, and that is to visit North Wales Wildlife Trust's Kemlin Nature Reserve. A wonderful wildlife site, whatever the weather. Kemlin is a very unusual nature reserve, not least because only a small fraction of the reserve is easily accessible to visitors, but it is precisely this part of the reserve, this unique elliptical shingle ridge known as Esgair Kemlin, which makes it such an incredible site to visit. The ridge is never the same from season to season, year to year. It's a very visible reminder of this ever-changing world, sculpted and shaped by the elements, and the wildlife here is constantly changing too. Although you can look down at the ridge itself and look at the specialist plants like the sea kale, the the sea campion and the yellow horned poppy, it's what's behind this ridge that really makes Kemlin special. Within the lagoon that's sheltered by this shingle, there are two small islands which in summer host the only nesting colony of sandwich terns in the whole of Wales. Many nesting sites for terns have been lost in Britain due to increased coastal development and disturbance. Here at Kemlin, however, they have a safe haven, not least because of the seasonal wardens and volunteers who help protect them. From the safety of the ridge, visitors can enjoy amazing views of several tern and gull species between May and July, all just a short walk from one of two small car parks. There's always the hope of a rare visitor too. We're actively trying to encourage roseate terns to return and breed here, whilst all sorts of unusual migrants and vagrants have turned up over the years. As the seasons change and summer sun is replaced by the wind and rolling seas of autumn, there's still plenty to see. Search the shoreline for waders and wildfowl, and look out to sea for kittiwakes, gannets and shearwaters. If you're lucky, you might even spot the white-grey flanks of a visiting Risso's dolphin, the fins of a bottlenose dolphin, or the nose of a grey seal. A short wander beyond the boundaries of the nature reserve can be very rewarding too. This headland is known as Quay and Cemlyn, and it takes you out to the very edge of Wales. On a clear day, you can even see the Isle of Man from here. It's a lovely spot for a walk amongst the wildflowers and even a touch of rock pooling. The rolling hills of this part of Anglesey are known as drumlins, relics of a past ice age. The reserve is also surrounded by a patchwork of grassland that is home to lots of birds and mammals, like brown hare and the more elusive stoats and weasels. It's also a safe haven for migrant birds, including sedge warbler and whitethroat in summer, and wheatear, godwits and golden plover on passage. It is always worth returning to the reserve though to enjoy a short stroll along the ridge. Maybe you can lie on your back and take in the beautiful big sky above. And you'll just have to use your imagination. If you're here out of season like I am, imagine the terns swooping down and feeding their chicks on these islands. Kemlin is a true wildlife spectacle, and thanks to our members and volunteers, it's accessible to everyone for free, whatever the time of year. Once you've visited, you'll want to come back. We look forward to seeing you.
Look at that, a wonderful look at Kemlin Nature Reserve. And we're actually joining Eve up in Kemlin Nature Reserve right now. Hello.
Oh, hello, hi Lizzie. Yeah, we're here from a very blustery but sunny Kemlin Nature Reserve.
You're not getting blown away, are you? It looks absolutely beautiful up there, a bit of sunshine.
Yeah, it's lovely. Quite chilly though.
Yeah, I'm sure. Now, look, we've just seen some wonderful clips and bits of wildlife about Kemlin, but for you, what is so special about this nature reserve?
Yeah, well, as Iwan explained in that video, it really is quite a spectacular place, and partly because in the summer we have really the star of the show is the tern colony. So it's really unique in the sense that in this brackish lagoon behind the shingle ridge, there's these islands, and they are a perfect place for these terns to come. Terns are morwenol in Welsh, meaning sea swallow, and if you see them, you'll understand why they're called that. They really do look like a swallow of the sea. But these islands provide a perfect place for the terns to come and breed and nest. And it's, they're within this lagoon, which means they're quite protected by the water as well. So we have 3 species of tern. We have Arctic and common tern, and then the sandwich tern as well. And it's the only place in Wales where we have a breeding colony of sandwich terns. So it's really quite special. And occasionally you might see the rarest of all the terns, the roseate tern as well, which it has historically bred here, but not within recent years. So we're also trying to get that breeding back here as well. So there's another place for them to breed too.
That's very exciting, I have to say. And of course, it's not just about the terns or the birds. You've got lots of other wildlife there as well, haven't you?
Yeah. So just some of the things that we've seen this year over this summer wardening here. We've got otters. We've got had a colony of seals, which have just been out just behind me on the rocks. And some days you'd see 20, 30 seals just in the bay there, sometimes hauled out on the rocks, which was fantastic. Ringed plovers nesting on the beach as well. And we've got incredible rock pools. So surrounding me now, we've got some of the most impressive rock pools as well. So lots of things, and throughout the winter as well, lots of wildfowl and winter waders. So there's just plenty to see here. It's quite incredible.
I wonder how many blue-rayed limpets you've got just sat in the rock pools behind you there. Probably hundreds, let's hope. Look, this year was a little bit different, not just because of obvious reasons, but there's something happened at Kemlin this year. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, of course. So it was a very unique year, not only because of the lockdown, but also because here at Kemlin, we had a great big influx of mostly Arctic terns actually. So at the start of the year, when we did our preliminary count, it was looking like it was going to be a really good year anyway in terms of breeding terns. And around early May, there suddenly was this great influx of Arctic terns and some common terns as well. And essentially, it ended up being one of the most spectacular years. We had actually breeding. We had nearly 900 common and Arctic terns breeding pairs of terns. And then about 1,000 breeding pairs of sandwich terns. And not only that, we had all these what we call loafers, which are these terns that actually couldn't find anywhere to breed, but essentially they would travel, we think, between the tern colonies around the UK and potentially further afield, because these terns can fly really great distances. And then we'd have these days where they all decided to come here and sit around the islands. And on some days, at the height of the numbers, we'd have around 9,000 birds here on these two small islands. So it was really quite incredible. The noise and the sight was just really, really a spectacle. It was amazing.
I can only imagine. Now, we obviously heard about the failure, I guess, on the skerries in the Kemlin Nature Reserve as well. Why did that happen? Can you tell us a bit of background on that as well?
Yeah, of course. So the skerries, they're a group of islands, and they're about 3 kilometres off the coast here, just behind me. And they're mostly Arctic terns would breed there, and they have done it historically. And that's a very large, about 3,000 pairs of Arctic terns there. So a very large colony of Arctic terns. And usually it would be wardened, so it's managed by RSPB. So it's a different organisation that managed that site. But unfortunately, because of the COVID lockdown, it meant that the site was unable to be wardened this year. Now, due to that, there was a pair of peregrines that decided to nest on the island, and usually there'd be quite a gentle way of being able to move them on before they properly settled, and that would give the terns a chance to settle and nest and breed themselves. And unfortunately, as the island wasn't wardened, these peregrines got quite settled in and were obviously enjoying tucking into several terns a day. But this essentially led to the terns, when they're quite flighty animals, and they'll do what we call dreading, which is if something sort of spooks them, they'll all fly up and they'll take a while before they settle down. And if this happens consistently, which it would have done with the peregrines being there, they just wouldn't have ever settled, so they wouldn't have had that opportunity to settle down and to mate and to get breeding really. So we were very fortunate because we had this great big influx of terns, which was incredible. But it really highlighted a couple of things really. One being that it's so important to have these sites wardened. There's very few places left in the UK where these ground nesting birds can actually nest without the disturbance of dogs or people, or it's really important. And that's something that we are losing more and more of, because so much of the coast is being developed, and so we feel it's really crucial that what we've got left is wardened, because otherwise we're going to lose these colonies. So so we were very fortunate here at Kemlin to warden the reserve here.
Absolutely. As we move forward, we'll champion, Kemlin and places like the Skerries moving forward, so we can ensure that these colonies come back time and time again. Absolutely brilliant. And before we go, just tell us about the Camelin Appeal. I'm sure many people want to know how they can get involved.
Yeah, of course. So the Camelin Appeal. So we have we have historically had some funders that have allowed the site to be wardened here, but unfortunately, one individual who paid quite a lot of money has had to withdraw that money. So that's something that we've lost for this foreseeable future. So essentially, the Kemlin Appeal, we're asking for people to donate money so that we can carry on wardening this site. And if we learned anything this summer, it's that really this site is so popular to the general public, and it's so important. And throughout lockdown, we were able to send updates and videos and photos of the Kemlin colony, of the tern colony here. And that, we got some amazing feedback, and that was obviously really important to people at home that couldn't visit the reserve because of the lockdown. And we want to carry on, once the restrictions were lifted, there was a big influx of tourists and people here, and we realised it's such an important place to the public, and people really value the reserve. But we want to be able to carry on, allowing people to come here, but not to the detriment of the colony, and wardening is a big part of that. And so we're asking people to go to the Kemlin Appeal page on the North Wales Wildlife Trust website and donate money there, and that would be a great way of supporting the North Wales Wildlife Trust and the tern colony.
There we are. You can hopefully when things go back to normal, you can visit the Kemlin Nature Reserve, but also support their fantastic work. Hey, thank you so much. Go and get yourself a cup of tea. It looks very windy there.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Lizzie. Bye.
Thanks very much. Bye. And that really it's a stunning nature reserve, and of course, as Eve just saying, a nationally important place for terns. So really, really important to celebrate and support. Okay, so let's read out some of your lovely comments and questions, which I actually have here with me. So let's go back a little bit, because some lovely comments coming in. Hello, so let's start with hellos from Cleo in Old Colwyn, Davina watching from North Lincoln, Wendy near Wrexham and Kemlin Bay. Hello. Nairara from Chester, Christine from Swansea, Sean and Debbie from Bridgend, Sue from Evelyn, Martin Colwyn Bay, Rian watching from Tregarth. John says he's loving the show. Hello. Christine said thank you for showing us how wonderful rock pools are. I know, they're absolutely fabulous. Joanne, wow, I love sea turtles. I think a trip to Cardiff after lockdown is in order to see this beauty. Al Rose says thank you Living Seas for all your awesome work, and we've got some questions in as well. Oh, we got another comment. John said wow, amazing show, better than Winter Watch. I don't, come on now, this isn't a competition. But I would say in terms of Welsh wildlife, the Living Seas Wales project has really put their foot forward in establishing why we need to protect our oceans. As I said that, I'm looking at harbour porpoise. This is very distracting. Yeah, I wish you could all see this. This would be brilliant. But there's two harbour porpoise just feeding there. Okay, some of your questions. Boating Life and Coastal Adventures ask, where are porpoise common around Tenby? It's a good question. Porpoise are common around all of our Welsh coasts, but actually most of the time they're just hard to spot. So yes, they are coming around Tenby. For me, one of the things you're looking for is upwellings in water, where you may see a bit of tide meeting, creating that upwelling where you may then see them feeding. Actually, for me, around Skoma Island, you often see the harbour porpoise there feeding. So around islands is a really good place to see them, but I absolutely don't see why not. They're probably here more than you notice, especially as they're so elusive and shy. You only get to see that very brief dorsal fin, very, very kind of skimming the surface, very, very shy appearance. But on a beautifully calm, flat day like today, I'm so lucky to be able to see them just around the corner. Cleo wants to know, is it normal to have Portuguese man o' war jellyfish on our beaches like we did last year? We have lots of jellyfish and hydrozoans coming on our coast. So yes, I wouldn't say, massive influxes all year round. It really depends on the weather, on storms and the warm waters from the summer months as well. But jellyfish on our coast is a big sight, and a wonderful thing to see, from barrel jellyfish to combs to moon jellyfish, and of course Portuguese man o' war too. Elvin says, are there any bottlenose dolphins around this time of year? So my understanding, the semi-resident pod in Cardigan Bay can be seen all year round, as they are semi-resident. So there's some bottlenose dolphins that can be seen coming into these waters in the summer months, but actually it's an all year round thing, which is an absolute joy in the winter months. Hopefully when things go back to normal, you can head out at any time of year and spot them. Michael Jennings said, is the increase in bioluminescent sightings in Wales a result of climate change? It's a really good question. I'm not sure if they're directly linked. I wonder whether it's something to do with the fact that more people are being able to go out and photograph them and are actually looking for the bioluminescence. So for anyone kind of wondering, gosh, we have bioluminescence off of Wales? Yes, absolutely. Both in North Wales, Anglesey is a really good place to see it. I've seen it on the Pembrokeshire coast as well. And it's, of course, these plankton producing this light using the chemical luciferin. It's like a chemical reaction, which is a really fascinating, brilliant thing to see, actually, in the warmer months. But whether it's directly linked to climate change, I don't know. That's actually a very good question. Wendy says, oh, can I see seals in Cardigan Bay? Apparently, yes, you can. The best way to see seals in Cardigan Bay would be probably by boat, seeing them bobbing around in the water, but you can also see them around Cardigan Island. And one thing I would say is, if you do see a seal, just be very careful. Try not to approach it. In fact, don't approach it at all. Stay well away and get a nice long lens or zoom in on your camera to take some pictures. If that seal is looking at you, it's probably being disturbed. So make sure you're well away. Give that seal, if it's a young seal, hauled out. It's going to want some peace and quiet and some good rest and sleep as well. Okay, there we are. I think that's it for now, guys. By the way, at the beginning of this live, you would have been puzzled, head scratching, I'm sure, over those two pictures. So let's reveal what those pictures are. Our first picture is, of course, it's a Manx shearwater. Have a look at this. This is, of course, a lovely shape, the prominent hooked bill at the end there, lovely white kind of underside and white underwing of a Manx shearwater, one of our favourites and charismatic species, of course. And what is the other photo? It's, of course, a common sea star, common starfish. So there we go. I'm hoping most of you on here got that right. In fact, the people who did get it right are Wendy Ryan, Anthony Peters, Nicolette Evans, Sean, Krista. Absolutely brilliant. Well done to all of you. And a massive thank you all for tuning in. This has been a really fantastic look back at the fantastic project Living Seas Wales. So many projects and activities have been taking place, and all thanks to a wonderful team and a wonderful list of fantastic volunteers. So if these scenes behind you inspire you to get involved, you can actually get involved still with marine conservation here in Wales and with the Wildlife Trust. Head to www.livingseas.wales to learn more about the project, and make sure you become a member of the Wildlife Trust of the North Wales Wildlife Trust or Wildlife Trust of South and West Wales. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye.